Hi everyone, welcome back to the Art of Business English. This is Andrew Ambrosius here for episode 77. Now today I've got a super valuable episode for you because basically it's part one of a two-part series called 30 Common Mistakes in English, and I've basically divided the 30 into two. So today we will be looking at 15 of those common mistakes, and it's incredibly valuable because basically, I've just gone through the list of things. I've been racking my brain and I've been taking notes with some of my students and working out what are the most common mistakes that they're making, or some of the ones that just keep popping up. Because it's incredibly annoying and incredibly frustrating, and I'm sure that a lot of you are making these little mistakes which they're impacting, I guess, on your fluency, and they can be quite annoying because you probably don't appreciate how much or how many mistakes you're making, and unless someone actually points that out to you, you won't be aware of the mistake. And they're so common that people do them all the time, so maybe they're becoming a little bit normalized. But definitely, if you're talking to native people or you're working in a English-speaking environment, native people will definitely notice these mistakes that you're making. Okay, so I've got a list here, and I'm gonna run through them. Basically, they're a combination of collocations, linking expressions, dependent prepositions, all these little things that affect your precision and fluency. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one, which is depend on. Now, this is commonly confused because they say depends of. Okay. What are you doing this weekend? Well, it depends of, and then they go on to explain. However, as you'll know that why, so basically why is it a common mistake? Because in Spanish it's depende de, okay? So people often just think, oh, it's de, so it's of. Okay, but it's not, it's on. The only preposition after depend is on. So that's the first common mistake that people make. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Now the next one is near or close to. Now this is really common because what people do is they forget that near is one word and close to is two words, but they mean the same thing. So what people often do is they put near to. Okay, where is the book? Near to the television. And this is just mixing up two separate words which mean the same thing basically. So you can't mix close to with near to. Okay, it's near is one and close to is another. Close does need the preposition to. Okay? Alright, let's take a look at the next one, which is basically thinking of or about. Now, people often say thinking in. Okay? Now, this is really simple. Why? Because in Spanish we say estoy pensando en. Now, people just think, okay, the preposition is en in Spanish, so it must be in English. This is wrong, okay? You can only put thinking of or thinking about. Those are the only two prepositions that can really follow thinking in this context. Like, I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking about doing that, okay? So really be conscious of that, because if you say I'm thinking in buying a new car, it just doesn't sound very good at all. Okay, let's look at the next one. The next one is suggest. Now, this is really commonly mistaken as well, just because it's got a fixed structure. Now, people make lots of mistakes with this, and some of the mistakes are people say suggest us, or suggest to go, okay, or suggest us to go, or suggest go, or suggest us go. So the reason for this mistake is because of the way it sounds in Spanish as well. I mean, you think nos surgió, so this nos, or nos recomendió. So this nos, people think, okay, it's the pronoun that goes after the verb, so they put suggest with us instead of we. Okay, suggest really only has two structures that can follow it. It's suggest plus subject, verb, object, or it is suggest plus verb and gerund. So what I mean, I'll give you an example. I suggest you try the fish. So you, subject, try, verb, the fish, object. Subject, verb, object. There's no pronoun there, okay? Well, there's a subject pronoun, but there's no pronoun that goes after a verb, okay? And the next option is suggest trying the fish. So you can put suggest with no subject, just trying, the verb in gerund. And that would work too. So you've got these two structures, two options. Don't mix them all up, okay? So suggest and recommend follow these two structures, and they're very commonly confused, okay? All right, let's take a look at the next one, which is make. Now, when I say make, I'm not talking really about the verb hacer. I'm talking more about the verb obligar, okay? So, you make someone do something. What people often do is, like in the active voice, they will say, they made me to give a presentation. Me obligaron a hacer una presentación, o me obligaron a dar una presentación. Because it's infinitive in Spanish, people go, okay, this structure must be followed by infinitive in English. So they put, they made me to give a presentation. Now, in the active voice, this is wrong, because make someone do something, it has a bare infinitive. So it's different when it's active to passive. Okay, let me show you from an example. So active would be, they made me give a talk. They made me give, not they made me to give. So they made me give a talk or give a presentation. And this is the active voice. So ellos me obligaron a hacer una presentación. Okay, but in the passive voice, and this is where it gets a bit confusing, I was made to give a presentation. So then when it's passive, we reintroduce the to for the infinitive. Okay, so I was made, fue obligado a hacer una presentación o dar una presentación. So, very common structures, easily confused, because in active there's no to, but in passive there is to. Okay, so this is the verb make someone do something, they're hacer, or they're obligar, sorry. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one, which is to throw. I mean, this is common because it's problems with dependent prepositions. There are lots of dependent prepositions that people make mistakes with. Common ones are listen, for example, listen me, escúchame, no, it's listen to me. Throw is no exception. You need to put the correct preposition, the correct dependent preposition after throw. The common mistake is throw to my face, or threw the ball me, threw the ball him. Okay, so people don't put any preposition. Lanza la pelota a él. Okay, so what you need to do is put the correct preposition. Throw must be followed by one of two prepositions depending on the context. So you can say, he threw the ball at me. This is the most common, at me, hacia mí. Or you can say to someone, throw the ball to me. Okay, hacia mí. So this at me or to me works fine. Okay, but you can't say throw the ball me or throw the ball throw to me. Okay, you need to say throw me. Okay, so bit confusing throw. We throw things to people, or we throw things at people. Okay, so that's throw, dependent prepositions. Let's take a look at the next one, usually. Now this is also very commonly confused, because what people do is they get confused between used to, which is solía, and suele, which is usually. Okay, so what do you do on Monday afternoons? What do you do on Monday afternoons? Well, I used to go to the gym. If you say, I used to go to the gym, you're actually saying solía antes ir al gimnasio, pero ahora no. Okay, so basically you need to not get confused between solía, which is used to in the past, or suele, which is usually, habitualmente, normalmente. Okay, so don't mix usually with used to. Usually is like I do it, often and repeatedly, and used to is solía, and I used to do it often and repeatedly, but in the past. Okay, so that's another common one. Right, we're getting there now. Let's look at the next one. Every day and all day. Where's the problem here? People put this, for example, this summer I went to the beach all the days. Okay, so because you say, este verano fui a la playa todos los días. Okay, todos los días. It's plural. But todos los días actually means every day. Okay, which in English, you don't say every days, you say every day, which sounds singular. So people get confused because they think, is it singular, is it plural? So todos los días is every day. But for example, todo el día is singular, and that is all day. Okay, for example, I swam at the beach every day this summer. Okay, so that's todos los días. But I spent all day at the beach today is pasaba todo el día en la playa hoy. Okay, so there's a bit of a difference between the singular and the plural form of todo el día or todos los días. Okay, so don't confuse those because it sounds a bit strange to native people as well. Alright, let's take a look at the next one, which is child or children. So the common mistake is that my children's are 2 and 5. People use the plural form with an S. So remember that child is the singular form and children is the plural form. It's an irregular noun. So you don't need to add S to children because children is already an expression of the plural form. So that's a very common mistake as well. Okay, so there's a few problems with nouns. Now, this one's also a bit of a common mistake. The difference between father and parents. Now, the common mistake is my fathers are retired. Because, why? Well, in Spanish we say, mis padres están jubilados. So, mis padres is the plural form of parents. Okay? So, or is the plural form, and we would say parents in English. We don't say my fathers. Okay, because my fathers would mean you have 2 fathers. I mean, nowadays it's possible that you have 2 fathers, so you could say my fathers in that situation. It would be okay. However, if you are talking about your mother and your father together in the plural form, you need to say my parents. You can't say my fathers, okay? And it's quite funny because sometimes nowadays, you'll say to some of the students, tell your father or tell your mother they need to call me, and then the student will say, which one? And you're like, oh yeah, okay, this one. Okay, so it's possible that you have 2 fathers or it's possible that you have 2 mothers. However, if we're talking generally about both, we would say my parents. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one, which is thing and think, or think and thing. Okay, so the common mistake, they are often confused. Alright, so, if they sound the same, so people often confuse them. What people do is that in their writing, they'll write I thing instead of I think, because it sounds very similar. So you need to be very careful that you don't make that mistake because, it'd be confusing. I mean, people will understand what you mean, but it's a pretty easy mistake to fix, okay? So just because they sound the same and have the similar pronunciation doesn't mean they're the same word. Alright, let's look at the next one. Collocations with do. Lots of collocation problems with make and do, but that's okay, we just need to study them. So, for example, do a mistake, do a party, do a photo, or do friends. I mean, these words, the reason why we have problems with them is because in Spanish, hacer una fiesta, o hacer amigos, hacer una foto, hacer un error. Okay, so, because the verb is hacer, people just default to do for all of them. However, as you know, with collocations, they're very fixed and they go together. There are some quite strong collocations. For example, you can't do a mistake, you make a mistake. That's a very strong collocation, it goes together. You can't make a party or do a party, you hold a party, okay, or you have a party. You also take a photo, you don't make a photo or do a photo. And you make friends, you don't do friends, okay? If you do friends, that means something else, but we won't go into that. But we make friends with people, we don't do friends. Well, sometimes we do friends, but that's maybe another lesson. Okay, let's look at the next one, which is agree. Now, to agree is actually a verb, okay? So you need to treat it as such. The common mistake is I am agree with you, whereas this is incorrect in English, because in English we don't say estoy de acuerdo. We say yo acuerdo, because in English it's just I, subject, and then the verb agree. You don't say I am agree. And this is a really common mistake because people really have it in their heads. So they say I'm agree with this, I'm agree with that. So it doesn't sound good. Really try and avoid saying I am agree and just say I agree. Just think of yo acuerdo, okay? It's a verb. Yo acuerdo, tú acuerdas. Just think of it like that, okay? Right, well, let's look at some linking expressions now. So you've got on the one hand The most common mistake here is that people confuse the preposition. They put in the one hand, whereas you can't put in the one hand, you must use on. Okay, I don't know why, but for some reason I teach them it's on, and then they start using in, miraculously in. But in is incorrect, it's always on, okay? It's on the one hand, not inside your hand, okay? Next one is despite or in spite of. Now this is also a linking expression, a pesar de, and despite means exactly the same thing as in spite of. So what do people do? They say despite of. A little bit similar to near and close to. They mix these two together because they've been taught that they mean the same thing, and for some reason they get confused and they say despite of. You can't say despite of, you need to say despite alone, and then in spite of is 3 words. So 1 word, 3 words, 1 word, 3 words, okay? They do mean the same thing, they do follow the same structure, but you cannot say despite of, okay? All right, let's have a look. That's about it. Yep, I've wrapped it up, I've finished it. Those are the 15. So basically, all you need to do is take a look at these, and if you are listening to this podcast in the car, then head over to the Art of Business English website. You'll have everything up there. You can also take a look at the YouTube video and review and study them. So yeah, basically you can easily fix these 15 mistakes just by being conscious of them and aware of them. I encourage you to take a look at maybe 5 a day for the next week, and try and study 3-5 a day for the next week, and I'm sure that if you make a conscious effort to use the correct form, then you'll start to really transition and change and internalize the correct way to pronounce these words or say these words, or put the correct dependent preposition. Okay, so pretty straightforward stuff, but as I said at the beginning of the episode, if no one tells you or points out these mistakes, then you'll often keep making them over and over again. Okay, so if you do want to have a look at a bunch of dependent prepositions and expressions and vocabulary and collocations, then take a look at our ebook on 500 Business English Collocations. Well, that's it for me, people. I will see you all next week for episode 78 of the Art of Business English. If you do have any questions, then do not hesitate to contact me. And before I go, I'd just like to thank everyone who joined and enrolled in my course, the Excellence in Email Writing course. It's a pleasure having you all on board. And if you do want to get into that course as well, then please take a look. I can link up to it in this episode. I've still got registration open, however, no longer at the launch price. So if you did miss out, it's still there, but without the discount. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. I will all see you next week, and I hope you have a great week. Take care. Bye for now.